It doesn't matter how old you are or where you're from. If you see this blue hedgehog, you know who he is.
Sonic's the name, speed's my game.
Even the people from Sentinel Island probably know who Sonic is. Over the past 30 years, he's had numerous games released, some bad, some good, and some. But today we get to talk about those games that got lost in time. Either these games were talked about at one point and were forgotten about and thrown into the void, or were just pretty much dead on arrival. So get comfortable in your bed and relax. And if it's in the middle of the day, still watch the video anyways. Let's jump right into it. Boom, off the rip, Sonic the Fighters, or Sonic Championship. It was initially released in 1996 in arcades only in Japan and had very limited copies in North America. So for kids over here like me, you 9 times out of 10 played it on the Sonic Gems collection on the GameCube or PS2. It was also ported to PS3 and Xbox 360 in 2012. Oddly enough, this game has an entire plot to it. It begins as robots suddenly start to appear in peaceful places thanks to Sonic, of course. Tails believes that Dr. Eggman is behind this, shocker, but can't quite figure out where the robots are coming from. Then suddenly he receives an emergency message from Espio. In this message is a video showing that Eggman is dispatching his robots from the orbital space fortress, the Death Egg 2. Sonic decides to travel to the Death Egg 2 alone using the Lunar Fox, a single-seated space rocket that Tails invented. Although, in order for the Lunar Fox to fly, 8 Chaos Emeralds must be inserted to act as the ship's power supply, not 7. 8. Meanwhile, Sonic's friends, who are spread throughout the world, are guarding the Chaos Emeralds separately so they don't get taken by Eggman. Although one of them ended up being stolen by Fang. For the first stop on the journey to get the Chaos Emeralds, Sonic and Tails head over to Knuckles. However, after hearing about what's going on, Knuckles begins to provoke Sonic, saying that if the Lunar Fox is a single-seater, then only the strongest among them should go. With Sonic, who believes that he's the strongest, accepts Knuckles' challenge and gets ready to fight him, Tails forces his way in between the two. Tails suggests fighting in the ring is the best way to sell this, and whoever is the strongest and beats all those holding the Chaos Emeralds will ride the Lunar Fox to the Death Egg 2. One of the fighters, whoever you choose to fight as, eventually makes it to the end of the tournament. Here, Eggman appears and creates a clone of the fighter to defeat them with. However, the fighter is able to defeat their clone and head to the Death Egg 2 in the Lunar Fox. After arriving at the Death Egg 2, the fighter gets a surprise visit from Metal Sonic. After defeating them, the Death Egg 2 begins to fall apart as Dr. Eggman in his E-Mech suit challenges the victor. Using the Chaos Emerald's power, the fighter defeats Eggman and escapes the Death Egg 2 and the Lunar Fox before it explodes. I think I said Death Egg 2 like 30 times so far. However, the post-credit scene showed that Eggman and Metal Sonic somehow escaped the explosion and head back to the planet. See, a game like this, I don't really look too deep into when it comes to the technicals, you know what I mean? I feel like this wasn't a game meant to be at Evo, as in taken super seriously as a fighter. I believe it's just a fun kind of button mashing game. When I was a kid, I loved playing it to make the time pass by, or when a friend came over, we just played it. The roster contained 8 characters, which included Sonic, Tails, Espio, Knuckles, Amy, Fang the Sniper, Bean the Dynamite, and Bark the Polar Bear. I was confused on who the hell this random polar bear was, but I guess he was created specifically for this game. Like I said before, it's a pretty simple and straightforward game, and it actually has a decent move list as well. I'm not expecting it to be like Tekken when it comes to the moves, but it's enough for what it is. Ever since I played it on GameCube when I was little, I've never heard anyone else talk about it. Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine. You could say this is Sega's take on Tetris, but it's really more based on Puyo Puyo, which was a Japanese falling block puzzle game. Originally released on the Sega Genesis in 1993 and re-released on the Sega Mega Collection, the game is set on planet Mobius, which inhabits these being-like creatures. Dr. Robotnik kidnaps the citizens of Beansville and turns them into his robot slaves to help him get rid of all of the joy and fun on the planet. To achieve this goal, he creates the Mean Bean Steaming Machine in order to turn the bean creatures into robots. He sends out his henchbots to gather all the bean-like creatures and group them together in dungeons so they can be sent to the machine. And you basically stop Robotnik by breaking into the dungeons and freeing the bean-like creatures. As you play throughout the game, you run into 13 computer opponents and they get increasingly strong as you progress. There's also a mode you can play against your friend in the 1v1. The Game Gear and Master System versions had an additional game mode that's called Puzzle Mode, where players have to clear the screen of predetermined sets of beans. See, I actually liked this game as a kid because it was a chill little time pass game, but like I said earlier, that shit gets a little tougher the more you play against the computer. I haven't seen anybody speak on this game in a long time. I may have seen probably a meme about it once or twice a few years ago, but other than that, it's been lost in time. Sonic Blast. No, not Sonic 3D Blast. This was basically a pre-rendered side-scroller version of that game. It released in 1996 and the story is straightforward. You control Sonic and Knuckles throughout 15 levels to stop Robotnik from getting the Chaos Emerald shards to fortify his base. I'm not gonna lie, this is one of the worst games I've ever played. Not just Sonic games, I'm speaking in general. The controls, ass. The music, ass. And you pretty much know what I'm about to say when it comes to the graphics. And this game got forgotten about for a good reason, to be honest. Knuckles Chaotix. With this game, if you're a big Sonic fan, you know about it, but to the general public or a more casual fan, this game is unheard of. This game was released on the Sega 32X, and for those who are either too young or just don't know, the 32X was Sega's attempt to stretch the lifespan of the Genesis out, but it was an ultimate disaster. I won't go into too much detail about it, but I do remember AVGN doing a video on this when I was younger, so I recommend watching that for more lore on the 32X. But back to Knuckles Chaotix. It was a spin-off game released in 1995 that featured the dread-headed Echidna and 4 other characters named the Chaotix, and they had to stop Robotnik and Metal Sonic from getting 6 magic rings and conquering a mysterious island. Now you may be asking, who are these 4 Chaotix members? Well, it's Charmy B, Vector the Crocodile, Mighty the Armadillo, and Espio the Chameleon. These characters were really forgotten memories until they made another appearance in the Shadow the Hedgehog game, except for Mighty the Armadillo, which is unfortunate for them since that game was such a shit show. There's 5 stages split into 5 levels and each one ends with a boss fight. Also, each character has their own abilities. Knuckles is able to glide and climb on walls. Mighty is the fastest in the game and can use a wall jump. Espio can walk upright on walls and ceilings and destroy unguarded enemies by running into them at full speed. Vector can perform mid-air dashes and climb on walls. And Charmy can dash through the air without any limits. Heavy and Bomb can be selected as usable characters, but instead they're always picked up as partners through the Comb and Catcher. The game has 2 endings, but it's nothing crazy. If you don't collect all 6 rings, the ones you didn't get will rotate around the dark ring before breaking down, and then they'll show Eggman laughing at you. Then the credits roll showing the burning city with Metal Sonic over it. The quote-unquote good ending is when you get all 6 of the rings. The rings are rotated around a white text saying cool. Then the credits roll in the background showing the following characters from left to right. In front of Sonic and Tails and Tornado, Vector, Knuckles, Espio, Mighty, and Charmy. Now we have Sonic R. Sonic R was released in 1997, initially on the Sega Saturn, and later ported to the PC in 1998, and the GameCube and PS2 in 2005 on, you guessed it, Sonic's Gem Collection. This was actually the 3rd Sonic racing game to be released. Now I vividly remember playing this game and being so frustrated with the controls. I'll be honest, fuck the plot of this game. This game was so ass, bro, but I can't lie. Super Sonic Racing was a vibe of its own. The game comes with 5 courses: Resort Island, Radical City, Regal Ruin, Reactor Factory, and Radiant Emerald, which is essentially just a knockoff Rainbow Road. The roster includes Sonic, Robotnik, Amy, Tails, Knuckles, and for some reason Metal Knuckles and Eggman Robo. By the way, it's crazy they call Robotnik instead of Eggman, but call the robot Eggman Robo. But the weirdest character of them all is Tails though. Even to this day, I'm not sure why they added him into the game. It felt so random at the time, but I can't lie. Tails doll used to scare the shit out of me when I was a kid. But if I'm being brutally honest, really none of these characters matter after you unlock Super Sonic. Like, they can't even hold a candle to this man. To unlock Super Sonic, you have to get all gold coins in each stage to get the mechanical units and obviously get all 7 emeralds. Ladies and gentlemen, Super Sonic is literally a god in this game. This dude can run on the water. There's no point in even trying to compete with him. The gameplay is pretty bad, but the soundtrack does indeed go crazy. I feel like this game was pretty much forgotten about after the Sonic Riders series came out, which I'm making a video on too, so be on the lookout. I just believe no one really speaks on this game unless it's an obscure reference to it. Tails and the Music Maker. In 1993, Sega decided to release a console for children called the Pico. Being a console for children, you can safely assume that it was mostly filled with those edutainment kind of games, and your assumption will be right. It also included a drawing board that would display the image on screen. Tails and the Music Maker was a game designed to teach kids about music theory and instruments, but it ended up having very little to do with teaching kids music. It was mostly a collection of mini games and point and click segments. Sonic Chronicles: The Dark Brotherhood. When I was little, I saw this game cover everywhere, but I never picked it up and played it. I don't know why, but for some reason that game case gave me a bad vibe. And I was right to not get that game. And it comes to find out, The Dark Brotherhood had a lot of hype behind it since it was Sonic's first RPG game, and it was also being developed by BioWare. What ended up frying this game was the typical Sega deadline, terrible gameplay, an even worse story, and finally the headache-inducing, ear-splitting music. This concept actually had potential to be something big, but ended up just being lost in the sands of time. Sonic the Hedgehog Game World. This game was also made for the Sega Pico, as I mentioned before, with Tails and the Music Maker. And just like Music Maker, it was supposed to be educational and teaching things like reaction speed and memory, but also just ended up being a bunch of irrelevant mini games. Last but not least, Sonic Pocket Adventure. This one was developed for the Neo Geo Pocket Color. Pocket Adventure was a platformer meant to recapture the essence of the original Genesis, but kinda ends up falling flat on its face in my opinion. At the time, it may have seemed good for portable gaming for Sonic, but it's aged poorly, and with all the remakes of the original Sonic the Hedgehog, there's no reason to return to Pocket Adventure. That's even if you somehow can find a Neo Geo Pocket Color. And I'm pretty sure there's tons of other forgotten Sonic games that I didn't list in this video, and if you know some, drop some in the comments below and let me know about them. I hope y'all enjoyed. I'll see y'all in the next one.